My name is Daniel Rondon and I'm gonna present about the Battle of Vicksburg. So first, why did it all happen? It happened when Mississippi left the Union. Civil wars started happening around the state, and battles such as Vicksburg, Jackson, and Port Gibson started happening. This was an important battle or an important stronghold for the Confederate. Seizing control of the Mississippi River was important because for the Union it was part of the Anaconda Plan, and for the Confederates it was an important stronghold. Let's talk about facts about the battle. It started on May 18, 1863, and it ended on July 4, 1863. It was between the Union and the Confederate States, and the winner was the Union. It was fought for 47 days, or 1 month, 2 weeks, and 3 days. At the left side of the slide, we can see that there are 3 people. The left one is Abraham Lincoln, and he's saying, "No peace without abolition." The person in the middle is like a mediator. He's George McClellan, and he's saying the Union must be preserved at all hazards. And at the right, we can see Jefferson Davis, and he's saying no peace without separation. In the picture of the right, we can see a cave that was dug by citizens because they wanted to avoid cannon fire during the Battle of Vicksburg. The importance of winning this battle was because for the Union, they wanted to control the Mississippi River, and for the Confederacy, it was an important stronghold. So if the Union won, they would seize control of the Mississippi River and they would divide the South in two. The Mississippi River was a primary conduit for supplies and communications through the South, and the Union was getting vital lifeline goods from the north of the river. Now, let's talk about the leaders of the Battle of Vicksburg. First, we have the famous 18th President and General Ulysses S. Grant. He fought for the Union, and now, for the Confederates, we have the General John C. Pemberton. He started as an officer for the Union, but later on, he became a general for the Confederates. Here you can see the strategy Grant used to attack Vicksburg. First, he split his army in half, so one half would go to cross the Mississippi River and attack from the south, and the other half would attack from the north. The Union won Jackson on May 14th, and it also won Port Gibson on May 1st. This was such a defeat for the Confederates because they already had lost 2 of the 3 battles of the Vicksburg campaign, and this made them to fail to stop the Union from getting to Vicksburg. In the battle, Pemberton lost half of his 40,000 soldiers to Grant. Here, you can see that Grant had almost 5,000 casualties, but Pemberton, he had more than 30,000 casualties. I would say that this was one of the worst defeats for the Confederates because they lost more than 30,000 men, and also they lost the control of the Mississippi River. And after 47 days, the Union won control of the region. The South was divided in two, and this was one step closer to completing the Anaconda Plan.
On January 9, 1861, Mississippi declared itself the second state to secede from the Union. Partisans still argue the causes of the war, but the Mississippi Ordinance of Secession clearly defined the state's motivation. It was read aloud from this second-story balcony. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. After it was read, celebrations rang out on the streets below, but not for long. Civil War battles soon raged all over the state, and the cities of Port Gibson, Jackson, and Vicksburg became key battlegrounds in what's known as the Vicksburg Campaign. By 1863, Confederate forces at Vicksburg were still in control of the lower Mississippi River, which is why President Lincoln told his advisors, "Vicksburg is the key. The war can never be brought to a close until that key is in our pocket." On April 30th, General Ulysses Grant and his Army of the Tennessee crossed the river from Louisiana and began the invasion of Mississippi. When Grant finally reached the city, he ordered a series of immediate attacks. but his forces were repulsed, suffering heavy losses. Grant decided that cutting off supplies and laying siege to the city was the best hope for victory. Day and night, Union forces shelled Vicksburg. The courthouse was a favorite target, but more for its symbolic rather than strategic value. Most of the key battlegrounds lay here, in what's now the Vicksburg National Military Park, which commemorates the siege and defense of the city. While Southern troops fought bravely, their efforts could not replenish dwindling supplies of food and water. After 47 days, with Vicksburg's defenders facing starvation, Confederate General John C. Pemberton surrendered to Ulysses Grant, here under an oak tree, which was later cut down to make souvenirs. The Confederates marched out on July 4, 1863, one day after Robert E. Lee's defeat at Gettysburg. In a letter to his wife, a Confederate soldier wrote, "News reached here that Vicksburg has gone up the spout. If it has, we had just as well quit and give up the Confederacy." Indeed, the entire Mississippi River, from Cairo, Illinois to the Gulf of Mexico, was now under Union control. Although the war dragged on for another 20 months, the Federal victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg marked the turning point of this bloody conflict. The defeat of the Confederacy was a crushing blow to the South, economically, culturally, and psychologically. Following the July 4th defeat, Vicksburg did not reinstate Independence Day celebrations for more than 80 years, until 1945. Nevertheless, the South continues to take pride in its military history, and to this day contributes a disproportionate number of soldiers to wars fought by the United States.